Call to order a work session of Goodyear City Council, Monday, June 15th. All items listed are for discussion only. We have 4 items on the agenda. No action can or will be taken. All council members are in attendance. We do have a new vice mayor this evening, and we also have a new council member. So welcome, Joe, and congratulations, Georgia.
Thank you.
Start off with update on the progress of the City Center project with Langford and Associates, but not Langford and Associates.
Carrier Johnson.
Carrier Johnson. Okay. Mr. Fishbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Mark Flynn will introduce the team to you this evening. Mark, of course, is our Deputy Director of Public Works for Facilities and is the project lead on this for the city. Mark, turn it over to you.
Mayor and Council, it's a privilege to be with you this evening because the project has reached a milestone, a very exciting one. We've completed design development, and the presentation we'd like to make to you this evening, we'll talk about some of the details we've been able to flesh out with regard to the project. Representing the remainder of the development team, my far right is Kevin Haley from JMI Sports, Steve Schrader from Carrier Johnson, Mary Pampu from Langford Associates, Edward Polk and Raul Varela will lead the majority of the presentation from Carrier as well. Presentation for you all, and then hopefully an opportunity to get a little bit of a question. We might be able to fill in some of the points for you toward the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for the opportunity. We're excited to be with you this evening.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for having us back. We are very excited to present to you the design development package. My name is Ray Varela. I'm with Carrier Johnson, and my colleague Edward Polk. We've been pretty much tied at the hip during this process. The design development is for really bringing clarity to the design that you saw last time. The architecture hasn't changed, but there's been more development as it comes to materials, landscape, program, and we also have synthesized all the consultants, so mechanical, structural, all those things have not been synthesized. So what you're going to see today is basically some development in the landscape, architecture, and also the library, not to forget the library. All those are going to be presented today. So let me start with the landscape first. Just what you're going to be having in the first phase is basically what you see in the drawing. What we have is the City Hall, which is 110,000 square feet, the library. You have 3 major parking areas. At the corner of Yuma and Estrella, we have created a different pattern that reflects your logo, again, to celebrate that corner. And starting with the library, what we'd like to show you is where we're at with that. You have the entrance of the North Main Street right up here. You have a courtyard. In that courtyard, we have some seating that is connected to a cafe within the program. Surrounding the library, there'll be a variety of tree species, mesquites, palo verdes, and other low shrubbery that would activate and people can use. The future Arroyo will not be part of this phase, but it'll be part of the next phase when the next project comes along. The program is broken down into 4 major areas. You have the main entry, which is the retail area, circulation area. You have the children's area. You have the urban living room. This is a high-volume space. And then you have the staff area located on this side. This is the courtyard that has access to this cafe. So after hours, the library could be cut off here, and this can function independently. This is a flyby of the interiors, and this is the main entry. We have flanked the entry with a sandstone that matches the City Hall. So here's, as you first approach the library, you have a large overhang to protect you from the sun. The cafe would be at the left. This is the major portal as you're coming into the entry. Circulation desk. These are the children areas will be on the left-hand side. Computers, DVDs will be on the right. And then you'll come into a grand living room, which has a high volume space. You have more reading areas, book stacks, computer stations, and so on. The exterior, last time we were here with you, you asked us to look at the materiality of the building and connect the materials of the City Hall with the library. We have done that as well. This is the west elevation. Again, this is the courtyard that begins to engage the park that will happen in the future. the same forms that we talked about before. As you approach the north side, this is the grand living room volume. That's all glazed, so you get the north light in. There's a small amphitheater on the outside, so reading areas and gatherings can happen. This is the space of the future arroyo. As you move to the east elevation, you can see we have incorporated some of the sandstone. You see the red and some of those recesses in the architecture, again, to connect it back to the City Hall. And then as you come around on North Main Street, you can see the main entry, and you see the other functions that will happen along here. Now, to get to the City Hall, let me orient you a little bit. This is the retail road that we talked about, one way, the North Main Street, the library just north of that. This is the main view corridor that we talked about last time. Of that view corridor, there's going to be a lobby with two entrances, one on this side and one on this side. Also incorporated in the site plan, there's a ramp that takes you down to the parking underneath City Hall. This will be a secure ramp, so not anybody can go down there. It'll be gated, it'll be secured. There's also a small area where you have temporary parking, about 10 stalls. And then you have the public plaza. This public plaza is just a wonderful space. You'll have a series of orchard of trees, mounds of grass. It'll be a wonderfully shaded space. You would also have this linear fountains that, again, reinforcing this major corridor that's been part of the SAP from the beginning. Those will be a major feature in the project. You'll have an opportunity to have a retail space in the corner, again, for people to gather and sit outside. Also, at the main entry, you'll have benches, some mature trees that create a nice shading in the summertime for people to gather as they come into the lobby. And lastly, as one of the, well, actually, this is the paving for the plaza. And lastly, what I was going to say is this major corner, which is it fronts the whole retail area, will be a history wall. We're proposing that we show you this drawing a while back, and when we first competed for the project, that really talks about the history of Goodyear. Last time we were here, we showed you this elevation. Pretty much everything stayed intact. A few minor things to note. The council chambers changed a little bit. The entrance used to be in this side. Now we have incorporated that with the lobby, which actually is a lot nicer. We also have redefined this canopy. Instead of having this architectural feature, we have introduced now some trees that actually become more natural, become part of the public space, a lot nicer. This is the updated elevation. The remainder of the building stayed the same. Again, you have these red walls that are a Sedona red sandstone. It's a beautiful stone. It's a local stone. You have the glazing, which has got a green-blue tint to it. And then the major council chambers piece, the entrance to it, and then along the council chambers there'll be some walls that be also cladded with the sandstone. When you get to the southeast elevation, as before, the sandstone becomes a great feature, and the north wall now receives a different type of material. This is more of a natural concrete material, sandblasted, that has some detail to it. And at the very top on the fourth floor, there'll be partial elevation balconies on all corners for some of the offices. This is the southwest elevation, the same treatment, the same details as the previous one. Give you a quick flyby. This is from the North Main Street. As you approach, you'll have the cafe in this corner, or retail space, the north facade, glazing, letting light into the space, and canopies along the street for scale. You have the major piece in the roof that caps the building, and as you come around, you have another change in glazing, and then the council chamber becomes a grand feature. And we left some of the future massing here so you can see just how prominent and how important that piece will be, really a centerpiece for the whole project. some of the materials, and we brought the materials that are on the table because the photograph doesn't give it justice, and I would encourage you to look at them. But sandstone, the predominant stone that we'll be using, glazing, and some metal panels as part of the overall palette. Now, you didn't see the interior presentation last time. This is actually pretty exciting. So this is actually a new feature, and my colleague Edward Polk will be talking about that.
So this first diagram represents all the areas that the public come into the building at the first floor. So you can see the two circles to the left side. Those are the two main entries into the lobby. Council chambers towards the lower right. The yellow area is a multi-purpose room, which can also open onto the lobby. And there are really three main features in the lobby. There's a long wall running north-south that will have a very civic nature to it. There's a feature wall behind a stair, which runs east-west, and then there's a grand stair that connects the public counter area on the first floor and the second floor, so it's very easy for people to move between the two floors. This is an animation that will walk you through the lobby and the council chambers. So as you approach, you can see it's a very glassy space. There's a good connection between the inside and the outside. To the left is a stone wall from the exterior that wraps into the lobby. Very warm wood wall, feature wall behind the stair that connects the two levels. And the stair and the flooring are a granite material, so it's very durable and very civic in nature. And then as you look towards the right, there's this limestone wall which has some dimension to it. The glass areas represent areas where we can incorporate additional history elements, which could be about the city of Goodyear, about council events, about future developments, and we'll develop that further as we go forward. The doors you see to the right-hand side are the doors that lead you into the council chambers. So here you're going into the chambers. As you enter, you're under a lower portion of ceiling, so there's a little bit of compression of the space, and then as you continue into the space, the height jumps up dramatically and then slopes down towards the front. The walls, the concept with the walls is the idea of cotton and agriculture, and taking that and weaving it into the concept of a textile. So the walls become very simple textile-like folded planes that wrap from the wall onto the ceiling. And the material is a perforated wood. We have the samples here on the table. But you can also notice in the animation at the top surfaces of the wall, Ray could point those out, there's also clear story lighting on each side. So the perforated material will allow light to come into the chambers as well as act as an acoustical material. And then the back wall is the same granite material from the lobby. We're showing the dais without the work session table in front, but there would be a work session table similar to what we're at tonight. So these are some still shots of the animations we just saw. Overall view of the lobby, the city seal at the floor. Council chambers, you can see the clear story window, the folded plane. And this is a very light and airy space. I think it'll have a lot of artistic feel to it. It'll be a very exciting space. These are the material palettes. Again, we have the real materials here at the table. So warm wood, light limestone, natural granite, the perforated wood material, and then carpet and upholstery for the chambers. This drawing shows you an enlarged view of the chambers. The yellow area, the multipurpose room, acts as an overflow. So we have 190 fixed seats plus 5 additional seats in the chambers for handicap. There's an additional 40 seats which can be loose at the back of the chambers, and then an additional 65 that are directly in the yellow area where the wall opens up there. So we have just under 300 seats total. This shows you the remainder of the first floor. The area in green represents the public counter, where we have community development and engineering. There's some retail space to the left in the gray. Second floor, again, we have a public counter area directly above the one from the first floor. This is finance. The area on the upper right is expansion space, future expansion. Third floor is all expansion or potential lease space for a different tenant. And then the fourth floor has the executive offices, mayor, city council, city manager, city attorney, HR, and redevelopment is on this floor.
That concludes the presentation. Any questions?
Elevators. Where are they?
They're right off the main lobby in the center, so we have 2 public elevators right where Ray is pointing there, and then there's also a freight staff elevator towards the backside of the space.
Anyone from the public wish to comment or speak? Mr. Gelser?
Could you comment on the upholstery for the chairs in the council chambers for the public?
We're looking at using material that will have recycled content, something that would be very durable. The seats typically are also componentized so that you're able to remove them if they need to be repaired or replaced.
Thank you.
How many parking,
Any issue over here? Any? No?
how many parking places do you have for the library?
For the library?
Right.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I know. Is Steve is something you know?
We're parking the library at 3 spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross, so we're about 220. And most of it is concentrated just immediately east of the library. Again, all of the surface lots are interim until future development occurs, at which time the parking for the library would move into a structured parking on parcel H.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nothing?
Yeah, no, I've got some questions. If you go back to the library courtyard, is that, and I may have missed it,
Yeah, actually, good point. Good catch.
you may need to roll through your, I can,
Want to see the flyby?
yeah, once you click on it, you can stop, or even, yeah, so go ahead. Is that the courtyard right there?
Yeah, this is the one. This is the
So
courtyard.
explain that fence. Is that,
Yeah, that fence is one for security, but
Okay.
also so you can roll it.
okay, so you can
yeah.
roll it.
So if when you ever connect to the park, you can open it up. People can enjoy the cafe, but also you can secure it. So if you just want to open it up certain hours of the day, you can have that option.
And then if you go to the floor plan of City Hall, the first part, when you talked about the very first floor when you walk in with the grand staircase and
Sure.
the,
Get to that.
what kind of distance are we talking about from door to first encounter with a person?
The distance from the entrance here to the security desk, which is in this location,
So you're-
is probably about 35 feet.
Okay, so you've got a security desk and then the public counter. So presumably the person at security would be able to answer questions.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, let me
The public counter was deceived.
let me roll this so you can kind of see it here.
Gotcha.
So when you first come in, this will be your security counter.
It's just, yeah, the public counter being for plan review and other
Correct, yes.
business type of
Correct.
things going on. Okay, all right. And then inside chambers, you talked about this lighting behind your,
Yes.
lack of a better term, your cotton or corrugated wood type.
Yes.
Can you shut the light off in there? Are you going to have?
No, you'll be able to completely block out.
You will be
those
able to
yes,
block out.
those windows are not huge. They're just enough to bring some natural light in, but you have the option to completely block it out. So if you ever want to go completely dark, you'll be able to do that.
From a staff standpoint, remind me again, when in our upcoming fiscal year do we make our go, no-go?
September,
September? And then we have the option to delay 12 months?
up to 3 years
We have the option to delay up to 3 years. Okay, so we'll be making that decision this September when we return from break, presumably. Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jim.
And when you return from break in August, September, we're going to be reviewing for you the finances which is a critical part of this whole thing, and the final things where they are at, and that will form the basis for your decision.
Okay. Can somebody talk me through the underground parking? I don't recall. I recall it mentioned at the last work session, but I don't recall.
I don't think we really got into it in that detail last session.
Yes, I do apologize.
Something we were concerned about, and that we talked about, that maybe it had to be done at the time that the building was being built. If we were
Well,
gonna
if we're going to do it, we've got to do it now. Otherwise, I mean, you can't have it as an
But
afterthought.
we did not see that, I don't think. Did you?
Yeah, actually, I do apologize for not including that slide on here, but I'll try my best here to talk you through it a little bit.
I guess that the notion being security for City Hall, or what's the rationale
We have,
behind
I think it's up
underground parking?
35, 40?
Yeah, 35 to 40 stalls is what we have.
And it's basically for security for mayor, council, senior staff, and convenience. That's why the public cannot access it, but it will be securitized. It won't be for fleet parking or things like that.
Right. Okay.
So where will the public parking be?
Around the perimeter, right?
Around the perimeter, yeah.
Around the perimeter, okay.
And then eventually parking garage if all goes well between our public-private partnership.
Correct.
How far is
I guess-
the public
oh.
parking from the entrance to the council chambers?
Here's the parking plan. So here's the main entrance to the city hall. This is the council chambers. So these are the closest parking areas to the city hall. So I would say from the parking to that is probably 200 feet.
About the distance it
Yeah,
is
about
at
200 feet.
About the same walking distance that it is at Avondale, I would presume. 200, 300
Yeah,
feet.
yes, I've been to that one, yes.
You have the closer one right there, yeah.
Yeah. You also have this parking that is only about probably, depending where you park, obviously, but it's,
Your
50
80
feet, 25 feet.
Would your ADA parking be in that first spot?
Some
there,
ADA
too?
will be allocated there as well.
It's only 10 spaces, though.
And that's what I'm kind of thinking. Most of your parking is really here. When this phase goes, obviously, all that parking will be integrated into parking decks.
I guess when we talk about this in December, I guess ask now, but I would like to hear when you come back in December the cost of that underground parking and what we would do if we did not do underground parking in that space and what the risks are associated with that in terms of if it's a security aspect for the public officials that are here in the future or the staff or what have you. If we're talking about, presumably in this budget, we're going to be talking about value engineering your project in some way, shape, or form. I'd really like to know what the delta is with underground parking and not. When I think of 40 spaces, cost per
40
space.
spaces, and certainly if it is financially feasible, we certainly could walk. How many?
Well, and if it's, yeah.
We'll be glad to come back with that.
And it's not December, September.
Did I say December?
Yeah.
Sorry, I meant September.
We'll be glad to come in December, too, though, if you like.
See, I move over to this side of the table. No, I'm kidding.
What about solar energy? Have you given that a thought?
We're still studying that, but like last time we talked about, the building is performed actually really well. I believe, if I can ask my colleague, we're in gold right now, correct, or based on our last?
Underneath, subgrade.
Part of the basement, yes. And that decision bumped us up into straight silver, and with a few more things, we might be able to get to gold. But you're going to save a lot of money every year on operating costs. So we have cooling towers and 2 air handlers on the roof of City Hall, chilled water plant down here, and no rooftop equipment at the library at all. It'd be very clean.
So presumably we're digging a hole in the ground, regardless if we do a centralized chiller.
If the parking garage were to go away, Rob, we would have to find a grade mounted or subterranean home for the chiller plant.
It's an
Next
important.
time we have a description of that,
That's an
before
important.
I'm talking like that, but me, a non-engineer Okay, I guess cold water. Now, what do we do with that?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
could you have some
next
information
time.
on
That-
that?
yes.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's an important discussion when talking about digging a hole in the ground. I mean, if it's, $10 million, all of a sudden you divide that by 40 and you've got $250,000 parking place. But when you start talking about centralized chiller and you amortize that, we need to kind of know those numbers when we discuss this back again in September.
Don't we also compare the parking, underground parking to build up stacked parking?
Cheaper to go above.
Yeah, it is.
So
It is cheaper to go above.
It's cheaper to go up than it is to go down in
That's
this
what I thought.
environment.
So I was wondering why we were talking so much about underground parking. If it's more efficient to go up.
Do you have a size of that multi-use room? How big it is? The room off the lobby?
I believe it's about 1,800 square feet, and it's subdividable into 3 separate rooms, so they can be combined 2 together, 3 individual, or all together.
How does that compare to this room that we're in right now?
It's probably about the same size.
I always need to visualize.
That's
Yeah.
the room, but then if you open the lobby up, then you've got
Yes,
that.
you'll have it twice as much,
Twice as much.
about
Right.
twice as much space.
I just have a couple questions. The main floor of City Hall, when you first walk in, the flooring, I'm assuming that's some type of tiling that if we do have rain, there's not a slickness to it. It has some kind of,
We're talking about using a flamed granite, which has a real tooth to it that is very good for walking. The illustration didn't show, but we would also have walk-off mats at the doors, which is part of the lead requirement for the building.
and the grand staircase doesn't look all that grand to me. So, I mean, maybe future thoughts are to have art behind it or something, I don't know, but it doesn't appeal to me all that great.
Yeah, I think,
It's
we-
just there, and it's a very large mass of area that's just not grand.
yeah, I think your point is well taken. I think there's a great opportunity, and this slide shows that this wall could be used for some sort of art, and it's not uncommon to see art programs in city halls where adding colorful,
I just want to
artistry
make
could
sure
be
this
nice.
wasn't texturized or something, that there was no chance of it being something else in the future. And lastly, my feminine touch is it needs purple.
Wow,
It
okay.
needs purple, or it needs maroon, it needs some other, the warm colors are great. It's just missing that one other.
So something
Ew.
to soften it up a little bit.
From a wood, kind of the wood material, is that what you're
Well, the
referring
wood,
to,
the
just in
wood
general?
materials are great, but I mean, if you even look in this, look at the colors of the chairs sitting back there, or the chairs you're sitting on, there's another vivid color that's just,
We could incorporate that into upholstery or soft seating very easily.
Right.
Mr. Gelser's, chairs that. Thank you.
Couple questions. On the monitor in the council chambers, is the only monitor the one in the back behind the dais?
No, those will be 2 monitors, side to side.
Anything out a little further for the citizens sitting out in the, you said this sits, what, 300 people? Would they be able to see all of that from where they are towards the back?
Are they bigger than this?
Yeah,
bigger?
they're bigger than this. It's about 10 feet wide, so it's about 3 feet longer than what you have here on your screen. So I think they'll be able to see it.
Able to see that? Okay, the other question was on the financing plan. Is that going to be a separate discussion, or is that going to be on the same night as the discussion of go and no-go?
We'll have it on the same night, but we'll provide plenty of time to do it.
You made me think about something else.
All right.
Talking about screen size, is there the ability to have a larger screen in there and have a drop down such that you could have presentations, or?
In addition to these 2 screens?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like you could have a larger drop-down screen for, I mean, I don't want to say a cinema-type atmosphere, but in essence,
Sure, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do a roll-down screen of some sort, sure.
what it would seem to me there, I mean, there are so many type of, webinar type activities going on nowadays in professional development and community meetings that happen over the web in terms of public hearings, even if they're from DC to here or other larger public agencies using that type of technology. We ought to outfit our city hall to be able to accommodate that kind of activity. And then as you're giving thought to the chiller, would it be a district type of environment? I mean, would the city be the owner of that? Again, this is a September conversation, but presumably if that chiller's in City Hall, are we then generating revenue off that chiller?
Mr. Matlin, you're standing there. I missed you before. Did you want to say something? Yes. Could you, we can't hear you. Come on up. And we got a microphone here we can use. Here you go.
Camera. Yes, we are.
Okay. Well, as a resident and taxpayer, it's the second time I've objected to this city center. I don't think it's appropriate. The city's having enough problems. We've had enough developments fail. We're losing tax revenue. We have businesses going out of business. We have foreclosures. I don't think this is the appropriate time to be looking at putting a city center into Goodyear. Next, you've used some appropriate terms like hole in the ground. Maybe that should be the...
Don't take my comments out of context, Mr. Matt.
Maybe that should be the name of the project. And on the history wall, is that going to include the financial failure of Goodyear because of the management or mismanagement of the city?
We can do that if you'd like it.
Okay, well, just,
Although I would like other people, if you'd like to form a committee and present it to council, and so that we can invite the entire group that was interested in that. If that's the kind of information they want on, it's their city hall.
And I'm glad to hear that you're saying that, because I think it's, at this point in time, I think it is very inappropriate for the city of Goodyear and its council to be looking at building a city center, which is essentially a monument to all of you on the council, and it is a inappropriate use of tax dollars.
It really is a monument to us that sit here. I take exception to that. What the city council has done for the city over the past 10 years since I've been on it is amazing. And to hear comments like that really gets me to the quick. I don't appreciate, this is your opportunity to say something, but I don't appreciate you taking on this council the way you're inferring. Okay? No, another thing.
Absolutely fine.
Let's keep it calm. We work for him, believe it or not. So let's keep it right. He's our boss.
Right.
Go ahead.
But when you take into consideration the amount of rent that we're paying here for space and bring that here, to me, that is foolish to continue this way. We've got businesses in this city scattered all over hell. And what we're trying to do is to bring it to one local point so that we can operate in a expert fashion.
If that is the case, council member, then just present it that way to the public so we know why that is. Hearing about the sandstone and having purple on the staircase and things like that does not make me as a taxpayer excited about this project. If there is a legitimate financial reason behind it, then present those numbers to us so that we can see that.
And sir, but that's not what this discussion was about, because I agree with you. And I haven't made that decision as to whether or not it is the appropriate time. And that's what we're waiting on in September. But to have the discussion of what it's going to look like, big deal, whether it's today or 3 years from now, because we haven't had that discussion. And I agree with you. It has to make sense. So you will have that time then, too, to give your views, and I appreciate it. But today, it's just about what it looks like. That's all it's about. So I understand it seems like it's ahead of course to what you feel is appropriate timing. I understand.
And I by no means am objecting to the discussion. That is good.
Well, you're upset that I
Communication
talked about purple. Well,
is excellent.
that's what we're
I'm
talking
just
about.
saying that this whole project is inappropriately timed, considering the economy as a whole and the economy of the city.
And you made that point.
Yes.
So we
That's
thank you
it.
for that.
Thank you for your time.
You know, one reason we need to do this is because it's a generator of development in that area. That area is blank except for a couple of baseball fields, and that's supposed to be the focus of the future Goodyear. I'm not sure this is the right year to do it, but to me, the purpose of this is to be the stimulus to get business, commercial, and office and others into that particular corner. And it isn't going to happen until we move in that direction. Whether it's this year or a later year is a good question, which needs to be answered. Okay, is that anything else?
Well, I just want to just reiterate and remind that how many years ago did we have a charrette where we opened this to the public? We had over 200 people attend a 3-day charrette on this. They gave their opinions. We sent out mailers. We had all kinds of input from the public, and this is something that they wanted to do. So this is just a continuation of an agreement with the public, and it was the majority of the people that came to us said that, yes, they would like to go in this direction. Just a little more information.
Okay, I think that's good. All right, thank you very much for coming. You fellows in San Diego, or?
Yes.
Yeah, appreciate you coming over.
You know, none of us said great progress. They've made a fantastic amount of progress, and I appreciate the visuals. So it was a great presentation.
Great presentation.
Okay, we'll now move to, I think it's Sonoran Institute. Harvey?
Thanks a lot.
Be a moving van.
You don't pull the wrong one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Howdy.
Howdy.
See you.
Kavanaugh, members of the council. Two work sessions ago, I believe, Tony had suggested during a discussion of the North Valley development, that we invite representatives of the Sonoran Institute to provide an overview of their activities and how they might impact the city of Goodyear, which I've done. And we have the director of the Sun Corridor Legacy Program. Program is director Dave Richings. He was formerly the executive director and founder of the West Mesa Community Development Corporation in Mesa. So you probably know him as a council member of the city of Mesa. And he also has the assistant director of the same program, Eric Wilson, who will discuss some other issues. And then Fernanda Falbo with the program director. So I'll just turn it over to Dave. He's going to teach the lead before he introduces us.
Hello, thanks for having us. Please don't hold the fact that I come from the East Valley against me.
No, we won't.
One strike against Dave.
Not only do we work valley-wide, but we work throughout the western United States. Our mission is to, as you can see, inspire people throughout the western North America to make good decisions and to work collaboratively with one another. We have offices in Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Arizona, and do some work down in the Baja California region as well. So we're all over the place and really are trying to help shape the future of the West. That's just our contact info. So I just wanted to hit on a few key goals. You have some materials in front of you. The goals of the Sun Corridor Legacy Program, which is the most urban program in the Sonoran Institute. We're looking at commuter rail between Phoenix and Tucson, leaking what we call the Sun Corridor to the north and the south. Models for sustainable desert communities, which is opportunities you guys have before you down in the Sonoran Valley region. We're looking at a clean and secure energy future, so solar power and that kind of thing. Doing a lot of work there. We're trying to preserve as many acres of the Sonoran Desert as we can, because really it's the reason why most of us moved here in the first place, our beautiful open spaces. And we're trying to really improve the spaces in between those places to make it a little bit more livable. And our last goal is to preserve free-flowing rivers in Arizona. And you guys have one that runs right through your community, I believe. A couple areas that are called rivers. Whether there's water is another issue. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric to tell you how we execute on some of those goals.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes.
Now, am I able to work this from here?
Yeah.
Arrows? Okay, great. All right. Thanks, Dave. And I do want to say, just by way of introduction, that I am it's happy. I'm delighted to be out in this wonderful new facility of yours and to see a few old friends and people I haven't seen for a while. Some of them are sitting behind me, and to make a few new ones. So it's really a pleasure of mine to be out here. I am going to give you a presentation that normally takes about 45 minutes with a whole lot of foam boards and PowerPoints and maps and things like that, and try to collapse it down into a very short presentation. So if there's anything I'm clear on, please call me on it, and I will try to clarify. I like that first map or that first image, and I think it says it all. Land, they're not making of it anymore. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is a land conservation program that we're working on in the West Valley. Arizona's future. The infamous map, which much of our planning has been based on. And I think the main thing about this is that we know where we've been. We don't know exactly where we're going to be in the future. The projection for 16 million, I think that's probably considered high right now. But say it's 12, say it's 11, say it's 13. We know we've got massive growth ahead of us. We know roughly where it's going because of the land ownership patterns, and you guys are right in ground zero for a lot of that activity. Well, okay, I couldn't help but do this, but one thing Dave didn't tell you about the Sonoran Institute, we're chock full of ologists, biologists, ecologists, hydrologists, any kind of ologist. We got them. I'm a public policy guy, but I do have one ology course. I have a biology class from the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire, and I thought, just to establish my credentials in that regard, I'd show you a view of my classroom. It's about 25 years old, and I believe they're still using it.
Clearly well-funded.
And clearly I'm proud of it. Yeah. That was my seat. Some of you may be familiar with this exercise. The Urban Land Institute has had a couple, in fact, you were in my first group, Mayor Kavanaugh. And what came out is 300 people, 30 tables, 10 people per table, 30 not diametrically opposed, but very different views on how we will grow. Consensus is we are going to grow, but how is another question. By the way, am I able to? Am I able to arrow this? No laser pointer. But on this one in particular, I just wanted to call attention to the area of which we're here to talk about, the Sonoran Valley. In the urban density model, great. Did you do that? Thank you. I like that. Different ways of looking at this, as opposed to, this was Table 1, as opposed to Table 29, completely different growth pattern and completely different way. Thank you. Did you do that again? Yeah. Okay, he's my wingman. But clearly, we've got challenges in front of us in terms of how we're going to view this growth, how we're going to, how we're going to plan for it. And this is a map you're all familiar with. There is a new one now out. It's coming before the MAG Regional Council very soon, I understand. In this, one thing of importance, and I should say we are supportive of this MAG process with certain caveats. We support doing it in a way that is environmentally sensitive. We think what they did between the Hassayampa study and the Hidden Valley study in terms of the way they approached it is light years different. The environmental scan that they did, the layering of the data, the inclusion of this wildlife corridor that you can see inside that circle, that's that BLM land to the south of here, which we think is very important to the development of that, and to preserve that landscape connectivity. We also feel it's important to have transit options in there, multimodal transit options, and because of the bottleneck that exists through there, you have a relatively small amount of land to work with that's going to connect major population, south, east, and northwest. It's going to be a very challenge, and that's not something you don't know already. Oh, geez, I thought we put in this. We hope is not the future 303. What we do know, though, is the image on the right. We believe is the Broadway curve. In fact, that photo I think was taken about 15 minutes ago, and we were just able to morph that in time. Okay, so moving to the West Valley, one of the issues that we have that's just exploded onto the scene in the last year has been the issue of solar. A year and a half ago at this time, we were talking about why do we need to do this, because the urban interface is advancing west, and that means a lot of freeway transportation infrastructure. It means a lot of more off-road type activity. It means a lot of just activity on existing parks and existing open spaces that is really having really pounding on these environments. You're seeing a lot of erosion, loss of habitat, and things like that. Well, now this is just a BLM map, but you can see, and again, I don't have the laser pointer, but the color scheme: brown BLM lands, the blue areas are state trust lands, white are private lands, and I don't know if you can kind of see toward the east section of there, that's the white tanks. And out west to the county line, which runs roughly just to the center west there, that is the county line. And all those areas that are blocked in orange are solar permit applications, from 5,000 acres to 225,000 acres. They're all treated the same initially by BLM. Now, 4 of them, as we understand it now, are kind of on a fast track. One of them in the East Valley, in the eastern part of that map, which I'm going to right now. This is a little closer to home, and Carvey and I had a brief conversation before this, so I believe you folks are a little up to speed on this already, but we are very supportive of solar energy development. The issue for us is there is a nexus between solar development and land conservation, and the two can be very compatible with one another depending on how you do it. And that's setting aside all the other issues about water and things like that. But solar that's proximate to transmission, that's on relatively degraded land, we support that. This corridor we feel is probably a good corridor. The area we've circled is rather problematic for us, and for a number of reasons. One, and that is the only public land bridge, it's BLM land, that can connect the Sierra Estrellas to the northwest and Sonoran Desert National Monument to the south. So that's important to us, and we want to work with the permit size of the permit application. Obviously is not the size of the facility, the footprint of the facility. So we want to be engaged on that as that project develops.
Is number one adjacent to new one? Would you determine if number one is adjacent to new one?
Dave asked me if I could determine if number one was adjacent to Newland, and I can't. I'm not sure. Maybe someone on the council might
Is the one fast track the one that's circled in red or number one?
The one that's fast tracked is number one. That is one of 4 BLM, as we understand it, and I don't want to get ahead of BLM, but there's a lot of activity taking place on that. There's a lot of head pressure to get some movement on some of these solar facilities, especially because now we've got at least 4 in this area that are on private land, and there's only so much market for this. There's only so much capital that can support it. So the BLM is a little behind on that.
Is the one that's near Gila Bend, is that involved in this at all?
No. That's the Abengoa project. That's on 3,000, I believe they got 4,000 acres encumbered, but 3,000 acres on the western side of Gila Bend on private farmland. And the 3 that are further north are 2 adjacent to gas facilities, I believe, Tezera and I forget the other one, but if I went back.
Number one is closer to Buckeye. The one circled is down in between Newland and Montauk.
That does not have, that has not been approved. It's an application. There's still all the issues they're going to have to deal with on it. But I bring it to your attention because it is a whole new area that many cities are going to be looking at. We hope to do some economic impact studies for some of your sister communities out here, and that might be something we talk to you folks about as well in terms of economic impacts, impacts on water, impacts on land use, some good science that you might be able to integrate into your planning activities. So, okay, here's the meat of it, and here's what I'm really here to talk about. What are we doing about it? About 2 years ago, we started interacting with some folks that had been out here in the Tonopah area and in others that were looking to conserve some of this land before it's lost forever. I should mention in 1984 and 1990, there were 2 major land bills that created many of the wilderness areas out in this region. Our goal is a BLM goal. We are looking at BLM lands, Bureau of Land Management, public lands that do not have current designations, and doing a site assessment to determine which ones are appropriate for some higher level of protection. And that can mean many things. It can mean some kind of a conservation overlay. It can mean wilderness. It can mean a whole bunch of things depending on how you write the legislation. And this literally takes an act of Congress, and we are in 2 congressional districts here too. So there is a certain amount of complexity to it, but we're very optimistic. Every proposal has to have a starting point for the vision, and when you look at this, and I encourage you to perhaps just spend 5 minutes when you do have the time in the center. This is the piece that kind of scoped out the vision for us. We needed to be able to put a face on it. We did some focus groups. We talked to people. This has been very much a stakeholder process from the ground up. We've been in to talk to just about every municipality, Luke Air Force Base, businesses, rock climbers, equestrians. If there's anybody in this room who we have not talked to who believes you might be a stakeholder, please take one of my cards, and I'm happy to drive out and give you the dog and pony show. But it is very much a ground-up process, and as we've got input from stakeholders, we've made adjustments to this, because at the end of the process, this needs to be a consensus-based process that the congressional delegation can agree on and move forward with. But this is where we started. We identified 7 areas. And again, the color scheme, brown is BLM. It's a roughly contiguous mass, very roughly. The darker brown areas in there, almost orange, are areas of existing wilderness. Obviously, in the lower right side, you see Sonoran Desert National Monument. And what this piece did, the piece you have in your hand, succeeded in kind of laying out the vision. So it's been very successful in that. Now, a year and a half, 2 years later, after many meetings, this is where we're at. We lost the study area because, for several reasons, we don't need it anymore. But we have identified 19 areas that
Excuse me, what's the study area?
That was on the previous slide. That red circle, or that red we call it the red cashew, just because we wanted to take a look at BLM lands that were in there that might be candidates for some kind of conservation. And after having all the meetings and the discussions, this is where we're at today. In fact, we're almost at the point where we can start drawing some boundaries around some of this and going forth with a proposal that does show the where and the what it might be. For instance, Area 1, sand tanks, that reddish area around there, those red polygons, what that's indicative of is area that has wilderness characteristics. It may well be suitable for wilderness. If you go further north, Area 3, that's not something we would look at as wilderness or a national conservation area, but we are supportive of finding some kind of mechanism that preserves that corridor in public ownership for purposes of allowing wildlife movement through there, and integrating those principles within MAG planning and other planning that might take place. Other areas like 18, for instance, up by Wickenburg. If you're orienting this, that's just southwest of Wickenburg. An awful lot of recreation in there. You've got off-roading, you've got horse equestrian uses, you've got some freeway corridors that are going to go through there. So there's a high value in recreation on some of that. So these are not all created equal. They're different. You also have now the issue where you're going to have large solar areas. We don't have the definitive map that overlays all those. So we're going to try to work this around some of those solar areas. And to just go back to solar for an instant, we're also very supportive of the notion of identifying some of these solar zones where they should go, rather than saying, we think you need to exclude these. We've done a lot with data overlays. It's a science-based project, and this kind of represents the draft of where we are at this point in time. And then I want to finish up real quick, just a couple comments on the edge. This will be important for Goodyear. This picture was taken from the top of South Mountain. What the edge should look like depends on the community, but there are examples of what we think it probably shouldn't look like. And this is great if you happen to back up to the edge of South Mountain Preserve, or all the natural resources you have down here, the same thing. It's not so great if you want access and the ability to enjoy that area. Another couple examples. And with that, I've covered all this very fast, and I apologize for that, but I'm happy to speak with anybody afterwards. And I'm going to turn it over to Fernanda, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the other aspects.
Just real quick, Fernanda's going to set the context for that linkage number 3 and why that's important and how the state studied that. So she'll run through that real quick.
Okay. Thank you so much for having us today. One of the things that we're going to be trying to do at the Sonoran Institute will want to do is to assemble a draft manual for design guidelines, which mainly what we're trying to do is we want to use it for educational and policy purposes to promote the transportation design that mitigate impacts to wildlife. And especially what we want to do is that this draft, what we want to bring the different studies that has been done already of other organizations that they had. For example, One of them is that Arizona Wildlife Linkages Assessment that was done with ADOT, and this was published in December 2006. What they did is that they were able to identify about 130 linkages at risk all around the state of Arizona. And so what we like to do is just bring some of that information and put it into our little draft. Basically, from here, there is a map that they did, and the circle with surrounding is the area of that we're going to be focus on it, especially of the Sonoran Valley, especially between the Sierra Estrella Mountains and with the Sonoran Desert National Monument. The next the next document that we will look into it is also the Arizona Missing Linkages. This document was done by the Northern Arizona University and with the Arizona Game and Fish. What they did in here mainly is that what they were trying to do is to integrate all the information of transportations that they had already and how they use the land use planning and the wildlife movement. This is specifically more towards to their scientific side of it. And what they did is they were able to identify, and on this map, they were able to identify some of the linkages that they have found, especially the one also, again, we're going to focus on is on the Sierra Estrella Mountain. And in here, they were able to identify 3 of their species, which is the bighorn sheep, the mule deer, and the desert turtle. And they're just mainly what they're trying to do is to show us some ideas of what could be their connection between the mountains and with the Sonoran Desert. That will be the area we'll be looking into it. And then the next one is, this is something that it came up on this year. The Arizona Game and Fish has already come up with a pretty good document on it. But what we like to do is that we would like to get in and give some more maps and get more information in it. And so trying to bring everybody together and have a good partnership with everybody, especially the ones with the stakeholders. The next one is the transportation. Mainly also the same thing, like Eric was saying, that they already identified the area where there could be this main linkage for the wildlife corridor. And what we're trying to do here is that we would like to show with maps all the areas that are already affected by that wildlife corridor, and mainly try to find some designs, ideas of how to put this and make the connection, and also maybe some cost of how much it will be on designing this linkage. So I have some examples of one of the ways that we can find how to preserve these wildlife corridors, or maybe going above the roads. And this is one, Contact has already some ideas of how to do this. And mainly what I'm trying to show you here is, like, for example, in that top picture, is that we have a road that is going through this area, and we're trying to connect between one side of the area, and this will be one of their solutions to be able to make that connection. The next one is, and then, of course, Contact has shown. And so far, we have talked with Contact, and they said that this design that they have in there is one of the best ones for. They seem the animals, they have a little bit better, they're more willing to go through those channels. So mainly the outcomes from our current project is mainly what we're trying to do right now is just to identify and prioritize some of the linkages, try to find what are the main species that we're trying to protect and make that connection. The other thing is, through the design, we can find some way to identify and restore the opportunities, and of course, make that preservation delivery on it. And mainly, most important of everything is, I believe, is build that partnership with everybody and see if we can work together and find a way to live together, between the wildlife and the urban side of it.
That's pretty much all we have for you guys. Just wanted to take a hit. Just one last thing. This is really about your community values. We're working with the BLM directly. We've met with the developers in the area, but it's really wanting to tap into the community values of the people that live in your community. And you guys can have an opportunity to lay down a legacy for the future, that you can do development, but you can also have in consideration the natural world, which again is why I think a lot of us moved here. And driving down through the southern part of Goodyear already in Australia, I think there's some really good examples of things that were done well, and there might be some things that weren't done so well. But I think there's an opportunity going forward to continue to develop, but do it in a way that really embraces the values of Goodyear and connects you guys to the natural world. Any questions?
Let me just add, anybody from the public wish to speak? Okay, Frank.
How does these solar farms, how do they impact the conservation and the wildlife in that area? Because there are places in Colorado, there are places in New Mexico where there are huge solar farms, and how is that impacting the wildlife and the area?
The short answer is it depends on the technology. Utility scale solar, which is what we're talking about out here, not distributed generation, which is photovoltaic, rooftop type stuff, they're typically large, and they have to be secured facilities. So concentrating solar, which are the troughs, towers, you don't see any yet. The ones that they're talking about mostly now are the troughs, they're the parabolic troughs. In photovoltaics, you've got liability issues, you've got infrastructure, so they typically have to be fenced. Some are a little kinder and gentler to the ground, but that's the problem. They are blocks, which is why putting them next to adjacent transmission makes a lot of sense. The land's already typically degraded. You don't have, from an investment standpoint, to go as far, and they're typically in less sensitive areas.
I appreciate you coming out, and look forward to more discussions. This is at my heart, so
Good.
I appreciate it.
Well, I think it makes sense in bringing all these studies together. One thing that stunned me the first time I got on council is how much we pay for studies. And a study is done, and then it's left on the table, and it's never to be used again. And it sounds to me like by bringing all these studies together, we can do nothing but benefit. I think the challenge is bringing them all together into one composite that'll be understandable for the cities to actually be able to use. So good luck on that.
Can I add on just one note with that? One thing with the desert proposals, we're doing our own work on this. We're relying on data that's already off the shelf. We're not having to pay for it. This does not have a fiscal note. It's not like having to go out and acquire land through the API initiative. It's public land that's already there. You own it as taxpayers. It's just a matter of designating it. And I sometimes it's a little dangerous to do this, but one argument that's very powerful with West Side residents, we found that if you're in the East Valley and you wake up every morning, you see that sunrise over the Superstition Mountains. There's the 6 lakes that SRP manages. There's the Forest Service. You've got tons of recreational amenities that are just outside your doorstep. Here in the West Valley, you get a little less rainfall. These places are largely unknown, but they are out there. But we haven't packaged them. We haven't talked about them as a cohesive unit. And this is a tremendous opportunity, and I'll put this out there. As Arizona starts, we're less than 3 years and counting from our centennial. I can't think of any greater gift, any greater legacy that we could leave to the future generations of the West Valley than something like this that they can be proud of for the next 100 years. But that's my little speech. Thank you.
Types of collaborations that you do with municipalities. I mean, we talked about the studies, but what types of things do you look for in terms of partnerships or collaborations from municipalities and other forms of government?
We've done everything from education outreach opportunities, like, for example, in Pinal and Pima counties, we've been doing community design academies where we'll help train planning and zoning board members and city council members and other city staff in what's the latest and greatest out there in design, green building technology, sustainability, and what that means. So we just completed a 12-week course in Pinal County where we did something like that. We do a lot of fact sheets that we'll share around. Stuff like that. We also have economists on staff that can interface with, what's the economic value of open space and what's the economic value of preserving this to your community. So we're available as a resource for that kind of information. And then, as Eric indicated, we have a lot of ologists. So we try to do everything based on good science. So we could interface with a city saying, okay, if you want us to, the buzzword is ground truth, what we're talking about here for you, then we can go out and do the research, original research, to get things done as well.
I guess I don't know if this came through, but in my discussions with you and your group, you're really looking to collaborate with development, not necessarily be a stalwart to development. That's an important aspect and a difference in your organization that I think, in terms of a resource for us, as we talk about the connection between Estrella and Sonoran Desert National Monument, specifically within the city of Goodyear, is advantageous for us to maybe come to you and look for comment, look for remark, and that sort of thing as we're going through those studies, as well for you to keep us informed as you're going through your studies, and expose us to those things that maybe you learned through that process. I mean, you talked about 3 specific species and the importances of linkages, but that's important for us to know. It's important for our staff to know. It's important for Mr. Gelser and Planning and Zoning to know as they go through their zoning applications over the near and distant future. So anything you can do to share that stuff with us, I would encourage you to do so.
Actually, we have a second chance now.
Yeah, we've got a bit of a stall. So
wasn't a chosen second chance, but we have one now, and so that would be great to be able to have that incorporated into the next movement in that area.
Yeah, it really gives an opportunity to
Yeah, it does. It does.
And you talk about all the studies and the fact that you pair up, but where's your funding come from? I know the answer to this question. But
a lot of different places, private family foundations. Some of the work that Fernanda's engaged in is a contract with the BLM.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah. We have some ologists working on the Santa Cruz River with a contract with the EPA. A lot of, private donors.
Do you in any way integrate agricultural land preservation in what you do?
We have been talking about this a lot more in the context of the solar, because the trade-off is, you build on solar, but you take ag land out of production. And we haven't actively engaged in that yet, just because, there's a certain amount of bandwidth. Thank you, you know what I'm trying to say, that we have. But that's certainly on the radar screen. And but the answer right now is we haven't had those discussions to the level I think we want to have them. You can set us up.
I might be able to be candid with you.
In all seriousness.
Yeah, I do have something.
I think that's a great point, because we had kind of slowed down on that, and I think this is our chance to take the time and get things set straight and right. And I appreciate that. And agriculture is one of them.
Always interested in making new friends.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming out.
Thanks.
Parrish, you're up. And Maricopa County on their quality department.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager. This evening, we have visitors from the Maricopa County Air Quality Department to update the city on air quality and the public awareness campaign entitled Clean Air, Make More. And our presenter this evening is Holly Ward, the Public Information Officer, Air Quality Department.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor and members of the council. I'm an apologetic presenter because my director, Lawrence Odell, was supposed to be here and was called away at the last minute, so I won the award, and you're stuck with me tonight. But I have a brief presentation. I appreciate your time tonight, so I will move swiftly. Before I start, we have some fellow staffers behind me. I came with troops, but in this first row, we'll start with Dennis Dickerson, who is our new ombudsman for the department. It was a brand new position and created to help bridge the gap between industry and us on the regulatory side. then Curtis Durant, who's our dust control section soup manager. And Curtis would be happy to help you with dust control permits when you start any building projects that disturb more than 1/10 of an acre of land. A little plug for you, Curtis. And then Frank Schinzel, also behind me. Frank is our newly appointed government liaison, former dust inspector. Great contact for you and for staff in your quest for fulfilling some of the commitments that we all have ahead of us with the Senate Bill 1552 and MAG 5% plan. So with that, I will move forward into our presentation. My director likes to start off with 2 brief slides that really help put this in perspective, this air quality problem that we face. This is not a photo or not a touched up photo that you see on the screen behind you. It's a good inversion layer, nice muck that we breathe in, unfortunately more commonly than we like it to be. But his point being that air pollution is man's attempt to attain a higher standard of living, meaning that if it weren't for man, this type of scene would not be a common occurrence. He also categorizes air pollution control with King Henry VIII, quote from him, stating, "Whosoever shall be found burning coal within the sound of my voice shall suffer the loss of his head." Now, air quality control regulation has changed a bit for the better, but this has been in effect for quite a long time.
Might have been quite effective, if
So here's a basic guideline for us when we talk about where we are with pollution here in Maricopa County and the Valley proper. We have kind of a parameter that we have to meet according to the EPA, no more than 3 times within 3 years, basically. So Maricopa County has 23 monitoring sites around the county. Any monitor that records an exceedance of what's beyond healthy to breathe is marked as an exceedance day. So no more than 3 within 3 years. You see we're hitting 53 times where we've exceeded that standard. And it doesn't take a math major to see that we're way beyond where we're supposed to be with the EPA. So the EPA has put us in what we're termed as serious non-attainment for particulate matter, PM10 you may have heard it called. But here's a quick look. We have 3 slides that kind of lay out the consequences. So first, it's lowest on the screen, but it's most important. It's health impacts. For those with asthma and bronchitis, PM10 particulate pollution is really troublesome. Then for those of us on the regulatory side, on the municipality side, we face putting into effect increasingly stringent air control measures. So anything for agriculture, like you were talking about, construction activity, OHV, off-highway vehicle riding, wood-burning activity, the list goes on and on. If our 5% plan measures are not met, or I'm sorry, are not implemented or approved by the EPA, here's a look what happens. So again, tighter controls. Then we hit the pocketbook, up to 1.1 MAG funds. They call them the TIP funds, which you may have heard about. Then ultimately, the transportation dollars at risk, the $7 billion at risk, and EPA plan imposed ultimately. So hopefully that makes the point that we need to do something. If it isn't for our health and our breathing, we need to get something in place. So I wanted to share with you a quick look at our emissions inventory. This is our pie chart of some of the sources. So here's where we started in the MAG 5% plan that was submitted. So these are the 2007 emissions with committed control measures, and I'm going to click to the projected 2010. So here we go. This is 2007 to now 2010. The big change is the change in tons per year at the top, the 97,000 tons per year to the 73,000. That's what the MAG 5% plan is projecting to control or improve upon. So here's why we're here. Maricopa County has a great stake in this MAG 5% plan. I believe there are about 53 control measures. Maricopa County is responsible for about 37 or 38 of those. And public outreach is the first measure on that 5% plan. So along with that, we have training, compliance, revised rules, which we've done, looking to revise some even more. We hit the rules to residents at home. So what wasn't restricted before, leaf blower use, is now restricted on government property, vehicle use on vacant lots, OHV riding, as well as the residential wood burning, which you may have heard is a no burn day that's called by our agency. We've kind of tightened up the controls and the parameters on that. So we have some ambitious goals, but here they are in a nutshell. First and foremost, we have to reduce those days that we exceed at the monitors. So no more 53 exceedance days within 3 years. We have to get those down. To do that, everybody needs to take responsibility. To some point, we all pollute, so we all need to take responsibility to control that. And then for us, on the municipality side for you and the regulatory side for us, we also have to meet those 5% plan commitments as well as the Senate Bill 1552 commitments. We wanted to quickly recap for you. Earlier this year in February, we held a workshop with cities and towns, and we had representatives from all of our 24 participating cities. And we wanted to see what the issues were for you. So Senate Bill 1552 required cities to do a lot more as far as regulation goes in your own municipality. And here's just a snapshot of what we learned. There's great interest in training. Cities are interested in learning more about basic dust certification, something we do, but cities aren't necessarily experts in that. Dust palliatives, things that instead of letting the dust fly on sites, here's how you keep it down on the ground. They also needed help with resources, as well as equipment sharing, public outreach, and enforcement. So out of that, Frank has led our group, Frank Schinzel, and he's working on a follow-up meeting coming up June 25th that he'll host with cities and towns, and I know that Goodyear is invited to that. Particulates aren't the only thing out there. Ozone is another pollutant of concern. It's a summertime pollutant, so you're probably hearing lots more about it. But the EPA lowered the standard for ozone. So had we been under the old standard last summer, we would have been clean and clear at the monitors. Unfortunately, we had 18 days where we exceeded the ozone standard. So we know that's coming. We know that's ramping up ahead. Something that we have in our arsenal of tools for pollution regulation and control is this mobile air monitoring van. Here's two photos of that van, the outside and the inside. Lots of stuff, lots of equipment inside, but we can roll this up to a site. So if we have residents complaining that this business is making lots of pollution, it's making me sick, we can actually roll up now and test the air that's coming out of that facility. And that van is currently in the testing, ramping up testing. We hope to have it fully operational and functional by the end of this summer. But now the good stuff. This, at least, is my point of interest as the PIO for Maricopa County. We have an outreach tool through our cleanairmakemore.com website. We needed a way to get word out to residents on when there's a bad air day forecast. Usually the forecast is sent out a day ahead, so we have time to warn people and tell them it's going to be a bad air day tomorrow. You might want to, A, stay inside if you have trouble breathing, but B, and more importantly, do your part. Join us to drive less, carpool if you can, ride the bus, as well as not burn wood on a no-burn day. Those usually happen in the winter. Other things along the way. But here are all the tools that we have and that Maricopa County has committed to. Billboards have been a big communication tool for us, as well as radio and all of our collateral material brochures. And it all pushes back to our website, which is cleanairmakemore.com. So here's a picture of our homepage, the big screen, or the big picture on the right of your screen. And then we have a new tool called a widget. So it sits on your desktop and it updates automatically to the air quality index. Those little squares update to what our monitoring sites are showing currently, as well as the little round icons. Those show when you as a resident cannot burn, can't use your leaf blower, and can't use your OHV if it's a high pollution advisory day. So we ask everyone to help us get involved. We have the tool for you. We have cleanairmakemore.com, but we need people to find out about it. We need people to go to the website. So we kind of started putting a list together of who's your audience. That's what everybody asks when you start a big initiative. Who are you trying to reach? I think this kind of outlines everyone, pretty much. So it's got to start at the elected official level, travel down to your constituents, residents, even visitors at times. So here's what we ask of the mayor and council tonight. is we need help in getting our message out there. So we ask that you help us by being the clean air champion. And we're looking for experts and ambassadors, someone at a high level to help us carry forth the message. So usually you have public meetings to attend and maybe you don't have material. We have material for you, and we're prepared to package it up in a presentation or goodies that we have as handouts. But the point being is we need assistance to spread the word. So we're prepared to offer you email material for your residents, newsletter material, Channel 11 we have going out to any of the cities with broadcast TV. But above all else, we need everyone to make the clean air commitment, and that's signing up on our website. Give us your email, and we will send you word when it's a high pollution advisory or a health watch. The point being is we need you to take action when it's one of those days. So with that, hopefully I've moved swiftly through the presentation. Happy to take any questions if you have them.
We have a plan to move on the information side of this and maybe assign someone to...
I think someone is
Be our
assigned to
advocate.
it, but I can't tell you who and what. So.
Kavanaugh, we would encourage an ambassador level from the council. We are actually traveling around to all the cities and towns locally. So it's a position, a volunteer position that we're willing to supply all the materials as far as just tips and information, but we're looking for a leader in the community to help us further this message.
You'd want this person to go to Rotary meetings and anything to get outreach. Is that
Whatever you're
correct?
willing to do, correct. Outreach is our main goal.
We'll get back to you.
Happy to do it. I mean, it's something easy. Our offices are blocks apart, and if things come up, I'm
They
downtown.
might work and stuff.
Well, we can talk about maybe the specifics of what it is and, what's going on, but I'd be happy to carry the message out there. So, yeah, I don't see why we can't. We can tag team. I mean, between the bus and the, yeah, Joanne. I
We
mean,
could hit the schools.
and I can tag team for sure
Sarah
on
just
this.
mentioned the little environmental Nazis could be out there. And
Environmental Nazis.
It was a good comment. It was good.
What?
I don't know. The little kids, they
Yeah,
get on
no,
their
that's-
parents. They
I don't think it
know.
has to be
They're a good
one.
audience to get to.
Well, I think you got a positive response.
I think so too.
How effective has your agency been on gas blowers used by landscapers?
There is currently only one rule on the books that we can enforce, and that rule is that anyone working, any contracted labor working on government property, so at ADEQ or on Maricopa County, cannot use a leaf blower on a high pollution advisory day. So we have yet to write any notices of violation or tickets, if you will, for that use. Our hope is, and I'll take all the credit for it on behalf of the campaign, that we're getting the word out so people aren't using them. But that is the only thing that we have the legal authority to hold folks accountable with leaf blowers. So unless there's new legislation passed.
I thought that when the legislation was written, that it included gas blowers used by landscapers, but evidently not.
They tried. Shot down, right?
Anyone from the public wish to speak? Or? Mr. Gelser?
I have a question for the air quality people that's been bugging me for the 12 years that I've lived here. And my question is, we have the air quality rules, and when I see a construction project like a shopping mall or a housing development, I see all these nice water trucks going out and spreading water and knocking all the dust down. And then right next to them, I see a farmer with his big old John Deere plowing up the earth, putting clouds of dust into the air, and nobody says anything. And so, my question to you is, and I know you're going to tell me you don't have the regulatory authority, but I'd like it on the public record, is why, if we're fighting dust on one hand with water trucks and construction and getting dust permits, then here we are on the other hand just allowing the Wild West to continue to take over and spew many particulates into the atmosphere. And on a follow-up on that, I inevitably will be driving down one of our major arterials, and there is a beautiful very large truck that is carrying dirt, and as soon as it accelerates, hi-ho silver, there's a cloud of black smoke of, diesel coming out. And that defeats all the, beautiful cars that some of our council people are driving that, are environmentally sound, and some of us who drive fast don't drive. But, those are my two questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to write them down so I hopefully go to back to both.
Echoes, I think a number of people always talk about the agriculture side of it.
And thank you very much. I would like to, if we need to go further, but I would like to say that that individual is very well educated, that the Maricopa County Air Quality Department does not have regulatory authority over agriculture activity. So we're only, it's like a police officer that can't write a ticket over this boundary, the state line, so to speak. That is our challenge. We do work with ADEQ that agriculture has to follow what's called best management practices. So it's not necessarily legislation or regulation, I should say. So I would encourage individuals that they need to register their comments with their legislators.
When you have so much dust from the agriculture plowing that up, that it goes across the parkway, or in this case it was the Estrella Parkway, and it blocks the view, and it's dangerous. I mean, this is, we have cars going in and out of this cloud, and you want to park and not go through there because I don't know what's on the other side of that thing. And that's not something that they can be called on?
It depends on the nature of the activity. What I've noticed our inspectors being able to look forward to regulate is something called track out. So on the agricultural property, we may not have the jurisdiction or regulation authority, but if there's track out, dirt tracked out onto a public roadway, then we absolutely do go to enforce that for cleanup. But we are as good as our regulatory authority is, and Maricopa County is committed. Believe me, we've added inspectors to our staff to fulfill commitments, and we're very serious about complaint intake. I was also going to offer for the meeting minutes and just for the record, we have a complaint line, an intake line. So we encourage folks to call. We do respond to every complaint entered into the system, and that's 602-372-2703. That's the direct line.
Say one more time, please.
602-372-2703. So if I left anything out, Frank, to cover, or Curtis?
Does AG have any responsibility on windy days? More or less responsibility to slow down production?
Curtis Durant up to answer that question.
I'm the manager of the dust section, and the gentleman had an excellent question, and I can tell you our inspectors, we get that question almost every day because people don't understand the differences. I can tell you that on an ongoing basis, of course, we're revising rules, Holly showed you, and making them more stringent as we see these things come along. Diesel idling ordinance actually is another ordinance that we have besides leaf blower and OHV and all these other things. So it isn't a perfect world, and while our inspectors will report to the agriculture, to the state, when they see dust coming from ag, we don't regulate it, we'll report it. And yes, the diesel smoke may be coming out, and we deal with dust. So I tell inspectors all the time, things don't fit perfectly together. We're not 100%, covering all the issues, but every year, every time we deal with a rule and revise it, make it better, we're getting better and better. So a year ago, we're at this point. Now we're doing so much better. A year from now, we're going to be so much better. So I think we're making excellent progress over time. The cities now, with Senate Bill 5052, and Frank's working with all the cities and getting them together, I think we're making great progress. So it's just a matter of time.
You've evidently made a lot of progress with Cement down here. I don't know if you're familiar with this plant, the aluminum oxide that comes out of that, where they manufacture or they make aluminum conduit or nuggets or whatever you want to call them. Ingots, that's the word. But That was at one time a very, very dirty plant, and we had some difficulty with them. And I have that number. I've been calling. So we've had inspectors come out there, and evidently it's done some good because the air quality has been much better, much better. So we'd like to get rid of it, though.
Anything else?
Ambassador-wise, we ought to get the Youth Commission involved in this. So even if it's just you or I giving a presentation to them, but we ought to make them, they hit every one of the high schools or touch every one of the high schools in our city.
That's good.
That's an easy sell.
Your interest. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. Brian. Update regarding modifications to the collection of bulk waste materials.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, city manager. I can understand why I'm last. I don't have an army of consultants with me, unfortunately. But I think I can probably answer all of your questions.
Trash stinks.
Trash stinks, yes. I'm here to talk about a program enhancement. We currently offer a weekly collection of bulk waste materials. City sanitation crews drive by 4,000 homes, approximately 4,000 homes daily, and we make approximately 200 stops daily. We're proposing and are in the process of implementing a new program that will allow residents to select their bulk collection day. Currently, everybody's assigned a day. This program enhancement will allow residents to select any particular day they want that suits their lifestyle. They'll be able to schedule their collection day utilizing a web-based program. They will be able to go on to this program and look at a series of calendars and select the day that they want to have the service. It will allow us as staff to manage the program better, to be able to manage the number of collections, to reduce the number of miles that we travel. It'll allow us to control the overtime that we currently spend on, especially on holiday weeks. The program will be primarily based on a web-based software, but we will also allow residents to call in to schedule appointments. But we will incentivize this by making the majority of the collection times available for the residents who utilize the software. For example, if we set 200 collections per day, 175 of those collections will be set aside for those residents who use the software, and perhaps 25 for those who use the telephone. But because of the flexibility that we have with this program, we'll be able to change that as we go through the program. If we get fewer calls or more calls, we'll be able to make those adjustments. What will happen is residents will be able to go onto our website, and through one of approximately 12 different links that they'd be able to find on the website, be able to go to a page that looks very similar to this. The key component here is they'll log into this web-based software utilizing their active sanitation account number. If you don't have an active sanitation account number, you're not going to be able to get to the very next page to schedule that program. This program is geared towards providing this service to those residents who pay for their sanitation service. Once you log in, the residents will find a page very similar to this. On the left side are the calendars that I mentioned earlier. Any day that's in white shows that that day has collection available to it. Down below those calendars will be a list of all the available days that collections are also available if they choose to select from a list rather than a calendar day. How we will incentivize this program is, if you notice on the 15th, there's no collection scheduled for the 16th, and that's because anyone who requests a collection on the 15th, the earliest day they would have available to them is the 17th. That will allow us one day to put together all of the requests and put them together in a route so that we can go out and make those collections. Anybody who calls in on the phone on the 15th would be calling to make a scheduled collection for the following Monday, the 22nd. What we will be doing then during that week is we will be verifying the account number that they leave for us, and we will give them a call back if the collection date that they're asking for is unavailable. And handling all those telephone calls is going to take a little bit of time, so that's why we're going to delay those requests a little bit further. But there should be enough scheduled days available so that residents will have their choice of days. And someone who, like myself, who normally only has a Wednesday collection, and I want to put out a lot of green waste, I'll now be able to put that out on a Monday if I schedule my collection.
Schedule every collection, right? Not a series of them.
You can schedule a series of collections if you want. You have that opportunity. Every resident, when they go online, is going to see this calendar for the next 2 months. Most residents probably aren't going to be able to plan far enough ahead to know how many collections that they're going to need 2 or 3 months out. So we don't anticipate that people will need to have a real long time span. The other thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to have someone schedule collections 12 months out, then cancel their account, but then still have that service provided to them for the next 10 months, even though they're not paying for it. As we move forward in the implementation of this program, we're going to go through an education program very similar to the rollout of our containerized program. We are putting together an educational brochure, a list of frequently asked questions. We're preparing information that will go on our website. We'll be doing press releases for the newspapers and the HOA newsletters. We're going to be holding 6 public meetings that we have scheduled throughout the city. We'll add more public meetings if we deem it necessary. A key word on this slide is the tutorial. We're working on a PowerPoint tutorial that we will present at our public meetings, but we'll also have a link for that tutorial on our website. So if someone has not made it to one of the public meetings, doesn't have an educational brochure available right in front of them, they'll be able to click on the tutorial and move through a step-by-step. We hope to have the website open to the public in early August. The pages that I had shown you earlier are the actual web pages that we are developing. We are anticipating that we will not do any weekly collections the last week in August. We know that people will put those bulk materials out for collection, and we intend to use that week as they call in to let us know that we missed them that particular day, to use that as an educational opportunity to tell them that we're moving to this new scheduled program in case they haven't heard about it in some other way. We will provide courtesy collections that last week in August. Our target date for our first scheduled collection is August 31st. In making this happen, one of the key components is that we will be coming back to you on July 13th with some code modifications that will be necessary in order to legally implement this program. So look for those, and please be aware that we need to have those passed before we can hit this target date. Otherwise, we'll have to postpone it. The other key item that I'd like to point out to you is most other cities in this economic climate are going from monthly to quarterly, from quarterly to annual collections, and it's not necessarily providing the best possible service to their residents. This is a program that is unique. It's not implemented anywhere in the Valley. It's not implemented anywhere in the state. In fact, we haven't been able to find a similar program anywhere else in the United States. But we do believe that it is an enhancement because our residents now have a multitude of choices, and they're not going to be limited to 52 collections a year. They can use as many collections as they want. For us, from the management standpoint, we can manage the program much better. We have a lot more flexibility in the program. And if we see that somebody is abusing the program, we have the ability to go into the software and deny them access. I'm available for questions.
Question for you, Brian. My experience on HOAs is you don't get a lot of turnout there on the HOAs. Are you going to be having more press releases to try to get the information out to individuals? I saw the things where you're heading up at some of the, like Pebble Creek and a variety of others, but I know in Palm Valley, their HOA turnouts aren't the greatest, and I'm not sure how many people you're going to get through the HOAs and when you contact that.
The public meetings that we're going to be holding are not necessarily geared specifically towards the HOAs. We're trying to focus them so that we're holding these public meetings through different geographic areas of the city. In our past public meetings that we've held, we've also noticed that we don't get huge turnout, but we get some turnout, and we get a lot of people who talk about it word of mouth, and then we get a lot of telephone calls afterwards. In some of these instances, residents in Estrella are an example, residents in Pebble Creek are another example, have very well-attended public meetings, and so we're going to be holding those public meetings. And if we need to hold more, as I said, we'll be happy to hold as many as necessary.
On the website itself, would there be a hot button on the home page? I know sometimes when you get into the website, it's a little hard navigating because it gets kind of busy on there for this program right out the chute. Will there be a hot button right there on the home page that kind of brings it to light, that will go into your other web page as far as scheduling these?
In talking with our webmaster, I've been told that on the hot topics on the right side of the home page, it will be a key button there for several weeks. In addition to that, there'll be links to this login page at approximately 10 to 12 different locations. So as people move through the website in different areas, they'll be able to find a link to this.
And their key would be their sanitation account number?
Their sanitation account number. Most people don't understand that their sanitation account number has two components, two numbers separated by a dash. One is a customer ID number and the other is a location ID number. The location ID, our plans are to have the location ID number serve as the login and their personal ID number serve as their password. That account number is specifically attached to the individual whose name is on the sanitation account and to the location where the service will be provided. When they go into this website, they'll have the opportunity to update information for us, their name, their telephone numbers, cell phone numbers, email addresses, but they will not be able to change their address. This program, as it moves forward, when residents click on that date for a collection, this program will send out an email to them confirming that they've made the collection. The day before the collection, they'll get an email reminder that they have a collection on that date. And it will remind them also of the type of material that we do accept and the type of material that we don't accept in the program.
Let me to get in there, though, they still have to know that account number. So they will, before they sign in, they're going to have to make sure they keep that copy of whatever their bill is from sanitation, because there's no search lookup if they put in something to get that. They're going to have that when they tie in. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's no search on the website for that. We don't want to provide that information. We will be establishing that hotline number, and that people could call into that hotline number and get somebody with sanitation or finance department and turn around and possibly look that number up for them. But that number will be on every sanitation bill that they receive.
The only reason why I ask is I'm one of those type that when I get my bill, I pay it and I toss it. I usually don't keep that, so now I'll remember to keep a copy of that so that if I go in there and request that, I'll have it. That's the only reason why I ask. Thanks, Brian. Great presentation.
Antoniak?
I don't know if there's the ability, but given that is going to be the number that's required, you might even, if you can, when printing bills for the next several months, highlight that number. Maybe even work. I know that might be a stretch, but if there's an ability of our printer, our vendor, whoever does our printing, to say put a red circle around it saying this will be your login for bulk pickup, to be another public information piece you might want to look into. If I'm a renter and I don't pay my trash bill, my property owner does, have you given that? I would encourage you to give that some thought as well, because we don't want the renters, that maybe are responsible for clipping the trees, putting it out there, but not being able to get a hold of the owner and therefore not being able to give you a code. So if they're able to call in and identify the address, if the address in fact has billing up to date and up to speed, we still want to be picking that stuff up, I would think.
the program is set up to where right now we're focusing on the individual who holds the account. In some cases it is the renter, in other cases it is specifically the property owner. And we'll be more than happy to provide the renter with the account number, because when the renter signs up for the account, they have already provided a letter from the property owner indicating that the property owner has given them permission to set up the account at the address that for the property they own. So we'll be happy to provide that to a renter who is utilizing the property.
Presuming that we've got staff on board, this may be a different question. So I just encourage some sort of public information on the renter. But going to my next question, staff that perhaps does this on a regular basis, they're currently driving the city Monday through Friday for bulk pickups throughout each zone. If a Friday rolls around and they don't have any pickups, I know it probably will be rare. What are we, I guess I would encourage you to think about alternative opportunities for them to do work within the city. That's maybe not a question, but encourage you to,
Absolutely.
if it's parks stuff. On the other hand, if you talk about the pardon me, Frank?
That's more personnel issues. That's not.
Yeah, we're already doing that, Rob. And as you know, we have already eliminated 2 positions in order to do this.
Okay. But presuming, I guess, from a policy standpoint, we talked about the discouragement. If they look this up and they make a phone call, we're going to be scheduling for the next week or for that, I guess, again, it's a management issue, but from an efficiency standpoint, if there's no pickups on that Friday and somebody calls in and you say, no, you can't go tomorrow because we encourage you to use the web, hopefully that person is given the authority that's on the other end of the phone to say, you know what, I've got 10 pickups, I've got 3 slots to fill tomorrow, I can make that decision to do some customer service on that end.
That's one of the advantages of this program, is it will provide us a lot of flexibility in scheduling this.
And then I guess if we're talking codes, and we're going to go to codes, if you are talking about abuse, let's define that early on. I mean, I can't imagine people are abusing this. I don't know that we can produce that much trash in a single household. Maybe some people can that are running businesses. Good point. So I guess I'd look for you to define that, whether it's coming back to us in policy or something that's in writing. That way folks can reference what abuse is. Otherwise, it's just an open-ended question. And lastly, on ideas of public information, we've got VMS boards. If they're not being used the week before August 31st, it might not be a bad opportunity. We do that during, start of school. We'll put a message up, but it may be bulk trash changes, visit the website or something like that around there.
All right. Any comments from the public? Yes, Mr. Matlin.
I didn't say big hole in the ground this time.
Can I grab a microphone? Thank you. I actually don't have a problem right now with my trash service. I just have a concern, and that is, will this program be only if you have web access?
No, it'll be primarily designed to utilize a web-based software, but if you do not have access to a computer, you can call in, or we have a computer in the lobby of the City Hall, and we have several computers that are available to residents to use at the library site. In addition to that, I believe that there are some HOA community centers that also have computers access for residents to use.
Okay. The concern is that a number of homes are occupied by people that are, maybe it was a rental and they've taken it over to clean it up. Maybe it's a foreclosure. but they don't necessarily have web access going to the site. They don't have a telephone hooked up to the site. They do have their trash service. I've seen it up in Estrella a few times where people just simply have asked their neighbor, can we use your trash cans or can we use your, bulk trash, essentially because we're cleaning up this rental property we have down the street. And my concern would be that people will get frustrated after a while that if they're not able to get that immediate connection through to your department and be able to get their trash service or the trash picked up, that they'll start disposing of it, whether it's in the environment in a wash or whatever, or dumping it in commercial bins, something like that. But just a concern that although I'm a very tech-savvy person, and I'm sure everyone here on the council is as well, there are a lot of people that don't utilize their internet. And, if you go ahead, even if you call in and you ask for the service, you're not going to get an email unless you're got your cell phone or your computer right there in front of you. And just a concern that there are quite a few people that are still in that category.
Thank you. Brian, how much are we saving on this change? Or are we?
There hopefully will be some savings. Exactly how much savings there will be, I can't tell you until after we've operated the program for a little while. The one thing I can tell you is that the weekly collection service was exceeding the cost that we had allocated for the monthly rate. So we were not, we were constantly over budget for the enterprise fund. Utilizing this program enhancement, allowing residents to have as many collections as they want, but streamlining the efficiency of how we collect the material, I believe that we're going to be within the budget that we have allocated for the enterprise fund. Exactly how much of a savings it'll be, I don't know yet.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I forget the exact number, but we have calculated that there will be savings well in excess of $100,000 because we have 2 less people. There's going to be a lot less travel. There's going to be a lot less diesel. All of that. So the savings are going to be there.
Sold. You said that in the co-op.
Administrative costs are going up, though, I would think.
Actually, that's part of the component that we're not sure of. Utilizing the web-based software will eliminate a lot of that simply because of the fact that it's completely automated.
You have to schedule every single delivery.
Actually, the only part of that that we have to worry about is the telephone calls that come into us. That's why we want to try and maximize the use of the internet. Everything that comes over to us on the internet will be put into a spreadsheet and can be very easily sorted into a route. So how successful the program is going to be dependent upon how many of the residents utilize the web-based software.
I guess it's going to take about a year to truly, 6 months to a year to truly figure that out, to see if it's.
It doesn't sound like it's going to be more than what we expended at this time. So what we're looking for is how much less that it's going to be.
I know it's not going to be more. I believe it's going to be substantially less. I don't know that it's going to be a significant enough savings that it can reduce the monthly rate, but I know that we can perform this more efficiently. We currently are putting on probably 2,000 miles a month on sanitation equipment the way we currently collect bulk. And doing it this way, we'll be able to put on substantially less mileage on all of our equipment. We'll probably be able to do it with less field staff. And part of that is the reason why 2 of our staff positions were eliminated. And so we'll be able to meet the requirement, to meet the needs of all of our residents with less staff, less equipment, less fuel.
Okay, so 2 staff people, what's that amount already?
Well, that's 100,000 plus.
So already we have
fully benefited.
$100,000 that we're saving off the top.
Yes.
Are you going to track this so that you come back to us within a year and demonstrate the cost?
Yes, we are.
So we have that to show the public.
Yes, we are.
You're going to, what is the role of the council in this? Are we approving this change through the ordinances?
You're approving the change through the ordinances. As I understand it, your role is to approve policy, and this is primarily an operational change.
Yeah, but our policy,
Our policy is to
sanitation
collect-
policies address some of the specifics of this.
The policy, I believe, is that we will try to keep the city litter-free, and we will therefore pick up trash. The way we implement it is through this means. What we need to do with you, and you have the obligation to do, is set the policy via the ordinance that we bring forward to you.
Now, you're going to have 6 meetings. What if you get a lot of objection during these meetings? It's imperative that we not come across as jamming this down their throats. We've done that before, maybe not in your area, but in other areas. If we're going to go to the public, I think they're going to expect to have a voice in this. And you have to go to the public.
We absolutely will go to the public, and I believe that the fact that we're giving residents options. Right now, we're dictating to them a specific day of the week that they're going to have those collections.
Their number one preferred service is collection of garbage in the city. And this, we are so unique in this service, we're the only one that does it. What, you said Tolleson does it too?
Tolleson used to do it, but Tolleson recently went away from weekly to monthly because of economic conditions. We are unique, and we're going to continue to remain unique simply because there's no one else in the entire country that we've been able to find that's going to offer this type of service, that offers this many options to their residents.
I think
Mayor,
it's
can
terrific. I think it's at least try it, give it a year and find out.
Yeah, I'm not sold on it. I just am not. I think we have a service that is exceptional, and I don't know that you're going to save any money. But I'm just, this is something that wasn't broke.
I have probably presented this to the city council a dozen times, Mr. Mayor, that we're moving this way, that we're doing it, and I would have appreciated anyone that had concerns to let us know, and I don't recall one concern being raised.
It is, I mean, basically,
What do you mean by that? Are you implying that I shouldn't be mentioning this objection now? Yes, you are, and that's wrong.
Yes, I am.
Then you're wrong.
I'm sorry you think that way.
Remember, you work for the elected officials. We don't report to you, John.
I realize that, Mr. Mayor, but in a discussion, it's a two-way discussion, not one way.
I don't think that's the issue here. My point is that I have a concern, and I'm going to voice it as a representative of the people. And I resent the fact that you're implying that I shouldn't be doing that right now.
Well,
I think the public would resent it as well.
My concern, Mr. Mayor, is that that concern should be expressed openly and honestly.
It is
certainly
being expressed.
I understand that.
I would just like, so from today's minutes that we're taking, make sure that we've eliminated 2 positions because, people are calling us and emailing us on this budget. It's called saving money. So to me, if this is a service that's still available, and when you look at it, sometimes I don't want to put it out on Wednesday. Sometimes I've got it ready on Monday. So you know what? This is for me. I'm going to say, okay, Ron, get on the horn or get on the computer and let's get this so that it can be picked up. So it does actually customize it. And why should we send trucks out to make 4,000 stops for 200 pickups? So when I hear
You don't make
them,
4,000 stops. You go by 4,000 houses.
Doesn't make
Which
any
is-
difference.
which is
It's
really-
mileage.
Which
It's
is really not
mileage.
a relevant, decisive factor.
It's a mileage.
That
It's
you
the
go
number
by
of
4,000
trucks.
houses. The mileage will probably decrease.
How about the number of trucks?
I don't think so.
Why can't this be considered
I can't
a
imagine.
pilot
You mean you're going
program?
to
Why can that not be considered that this is a pilot, a trial? You know, that's how I would be presenting it to the citizens. We want to try this. We think it's going to be more efficient. Some of you may not like it. Some of you will highly appreciate it because it is more customized. I do my yard work on Sunday. Monday I want it picked up, not Wednesday. So it could be more customized. But if it's really laid out there that this is a trial period, and we feel that it's more efficient.
I think the people would appreciate the idea it's a pilot program.
Pilot program, right.
Right.
Well, I think if we're going to do that, then at these public meetings, you have to be prepared to present the costs. We set this up as an enterprise fund. We set a policy at council that we would capture the costs of sanitation, and we're not capturing the cost of sanitation. This is in response to making sure we stay within the budget of that enterprise fund, or at least being as efficient as possible with that enterprise fund. So if it's a matter of discussion, if we're presenting this to the public at those meetings, a $5 fund that was on the sanitation bill that we debated, we talked hours upon hours upon hours on that committee about, the $5 was supposed to cover that bulk pickup. It's not covering that bulk pickup. So if people want bulk pickup once a week to drive by their house, and it's costing $10, then we need to have that candid conversation. To me, this sounds like it's a cost savings measure, and it's not putting upward pressure on that monthly bill. And if we're going to have the conversation of continued service, I agree. I don't disagree that a year down the road we can get back to this and say, look, it's not working. But right now we're talking about for me, this is a budget issue. This isn't it's as much a budget issue as it is a service issue. I don't disagree. I think some people are going to be used to Wednesday, and they want to put that thing out there every single Wednesday. But I'd be willing to take up the inconvenience for $5 a month if that's what it's going to cost me, to go to the web or make a phone call and schedule that service. And personally, as a working person, I hate the day that it happens in my week. We do the same. Joanne and I know this both. We'd love to do it on Sunday and throw it out there so it gets picked up on Monday and plan accordingly. Some folks may be able to work around that. But if you're going to present it to the public, I don't know that anybody disagrees. It's a budget measure.
It might be so innovative, all the rest of the citizens.
Otherwise, we have to have a true discussion, because we're talking about hiring 2 other people, keeping that capital equipment, and we're talking about a $250,000 discussion, and how do we accommodate that $250,000 within the budget and sanitation. And if we're going to do that, we have to have a discussion about upward pressure on that monthly bill.
And the pressure of being efficient. We want to run things efficiently. It's a change.
And we want to provide a service.
Yeah. That's right.
That's the main thing.
But it is a change, and change seems to be, right now, everything that's happening to our city is change. And, it's...
People hate change.
It's another thing, so I understand that.
But is it that we're going to term it a pilot program, or no?
I think we can always change the program back.
But I think from the very beginning, there is a concern here, and I'm just concerned about the public as well. I think the avenue to take would be to call it a pilot program and then see how it works out after a year, and then go from there, make it permanent. We basically did the same thing, Mr. Barnes, when we went to the containers.
Yeah.
I don't see the problem with calling it a pilot program. If it's going to do what you say it's going to do, then in the year you come back and present it to us, if it's cost savings and people are happy with it, of course we're going to go along with it. If it needs adjustment, then adjustment. I'm happy to go along with saying it's a pilot. Does that make you feel better on that?
I think it's a better thing to do.
Okay.
I think it's reflective of our citizens, giving them that they aren't getting necessarily a choice, because we're going to do it for a year anyway.
Yeah.
But at least they know that after a year, we could revert to what we once had, if in fact they'd like to do that.
And then actually, the public can come forth and actually have some input, say, hey, yay, I liked it, no, I didn't, and this is why I didn't like it. So it actually gives us more information.
But in the long run, and I have to agree with the city manager, that this is a budgetary cost containment item, and all of us are interested in cost containment at this stage.
Well, in a year, it'll certainly give us that. It'll give us that answer. It'll be clear and concise.
One way or another.
Yeah. So.
You'll have definite data, right?
We'll
Yes, I
see what
will.
happens.
I mean, it doesn't change the program. We're going to do the program, and we'll have it for a year, right?
I don't think it'll do.
All right, thank you. Okay, opportunity now. Any comments you want to the staff? One point I'd like to make real quick. 1403 got through the Senate, and Harry, thank you for that. But I think the lady isn't here, and she did a lot of lobbying on behalf of the entire valley, and that's Romina Corkis. So pass on our compliments.
Solar. It's the
Solar.
10th.
Okay.
Just real quick, I had an opportunity to go to the newly elected officials work session that the league puts on.
Good.
With exception of one of the staff members that was on the board. It was really very enlightening, and they put on a really good program.
Appreciate that.
Also, I had the opportunity, I think it was last Thursday, to go to the police CompStat presentation. Very informative. I like the way they communicate among themselves and sharing information and pulling resources. So tip of the hat to PD. Great meeting. Thank you.
I've got a couple of items. One, very serious matter. I attended CDAC the other night, and as you know, they had received close to $1 million in NSP money, and that NSP money was being decided upon how, or the money, the county was deciding how that money should be spent. They found close to another $1 million, it's almost $2 million in this fund. And they want to use that going through an agency called Valle de Sol and bring retired people to these homes that have been abandoned. And they've picked Goodyear as the city that they want to come to. Now, what this amounts to, these will be Latino people who will come to Goodyear, and they are single, retired people, but they are not in, it's not a group home. They're in need. They need no help, and they can get along on their own. They'll each have their own car, and they will be put into a neighborhood in one of these homes. It could be all the way from Pebble Creek to Estrella, but most of the homes they've selected are in the center of the city. But they want to take over those homes and put these retired people in those homes. And I felt that I should come to the council and tell the council that this is being, a study is being done now to do this, and they're coming to us in July to give us the final on this. And there are several problems involved with this. And there are some good things about it. Well, first, the positive side of this is these people are going to be in the houses all day long while other workers, while you're gone to work and the neighborhoods are empty. They'll be around to watch things. The negative side of this is I'm not sure they know about homeowners associations. They do not know about the CD, what is the, what's the additional tax we have on homes?
CFDs.
CFDs. They do not know about CFDs. They don't know about any of these things or any details. They don't know that in Goodyear you can't park on the street overnight. And they're going to have several houses, several people in one house. In a 4-bedroom house, there'll be 4 people. That means there'll probably be some cars on the street.
Are they buying the houses?
They are buying, Valle de Sol is buying the houses, and they want them for 15 years. Evidently, they're going through a bank because they're doing some kind of financing, but they want to use those for these retired people, and they will continue to rotate more people through. As someone gets old enough that can't take care of themselves, they'll take them out. New people will come in. I just think it's a concern. I don't think they know what they're getting into, and I've told them that, and we will be...
What we're going to get into.
Well, and that's the other thing. And they said we have no say on that because if they buy the home, they can put these people in there, and they do not have to come to our city council. And I said, well, I think that you should,
Well, I think we ought to turn it over to legal, frankly.
And, well, if that's where it needs to go, but we need to do something about this, because I don't think this is the right direction for this. There's another side of this, and I'm trying not to be prejudiced about this, because it is not a prejudiced item. It's just that many of these people in this culture are very family-oriented, which is very beautiful. It's very nice. I can tell you that there will be huge numbers of the families there all day long, even if they're not allowed to stay overnight.
Yeah, but
And-
we can't say that for sure, you know.
Well, I can tell you that
Our best proactive route to this is going to be education and sitting down with them and talking to them about HOAs and talking to, I mean, that's all.
well,
we can
this
do.
is their job. This is what
As a
divided
city,
the
that's
soul. This is not. This is the job of this organization, and they need to educate these people into what they're getting into. And they say they will have these people prepared for these homes.
We need more information on this.
Well, that's what we
Maybe
did
you-
send them back for that.
No.
Maybe you can stop by, Frank, and talk to Rourke when he's back, or maybe
Okay.
this week, and then we can.
We need to go into this. But I wanted to make the council aware of this, because you need to know that this is a possibility of something like this coming to Goodyear.
8 rings a bell.
May be good, it may not. I don't know.
Okay.
But you can come in and.
Yeah, we can discuss it.
That it, Frank?
That's it.
Okay. Meeting adjourned. What do you, okay, it isn't
No,
adjourned.
I was going to just ask legal, I mean, I was going to ask for a yellow paper on that discussion then. So, I mean, it's, you know, I think nonprofits have a right to do a community service, and they've got a human relations aspect to their business, and I would hope, that any nonprofit organization, and I mean, this isn't on the agenda, so maybe we can have a more healthy discussion about it, but I'm sure that we've dealt with the group home scenario, and there's city ordinances that deal with group home scenarios, and if there's local dollars that are being
But
appropriated.
this isn't a group home. They will argue that point.
Okay, but I'm just saying,
Also have,
I'd like a report back,
We also
regardless
have-
of whether it was Via de Sol, or whether it was United Way, or whether it was any other organization for that matter, because quite honestly, Maricopa County Housing Authority is out doing the same thing in terms of trying to get folks into homes at a time when homes are hard to come by for some folks. And I think they deserve a great deal of respect for trying to do a service that the community needs. So,
we have a veterans group also is doing the very same thing. They're going to
and
be
it's an
coming in and
important
buying
service.
homes.